right, guys, welcome to this Recruit University mentoring call. It's my great honor and pleasure to have a good friend of mine on. I've known him for many, many years. He is the writer for the Terrapin Times. He covers the University of Maryland football, basketball. He follows high school football players, college football players. Dave Lomonico out of Baltimore, Maryland. Dave, welcome to the call, man.
I thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. It's a really good opportunity for you guys. Dave actually is a scout, and he actually watches guys, and he writes up stories about them, and he can tell you all types of things that he sees about kids going to college, kids who are making mistakes, and some of those things that you probably can do to help yourself get noticed a little better. Dave, tell us a little bit about what you do in Scout.com.
Yeah. So I first started coming out of college, working for various. I worked for Rivals at first, and then moved over to Scout. And actually, now we're merging with 247, so it'll be all three of the major networks there. And when I first started doing this, for me, I was basically scouting all high schools throughout the Maryland, D.C., Northern Virginia area, and just watching recruits like crazy, and providing analysis and things like that. And I was in touch with a lot of different colleges. And then I was maybe about 5-6 years ago, I took a job over at University of Maryland. So I just cover purely Maryland football and basketball recruiting now. But I still do sort of the same sort of thing. It's just that I'm basically looking for guys that Maryland's interested in. But still do the same sort of thing. See a lot of players, a lot of scouting, go to a lot of high school games, and then talk to a bunch of kids, a lot of kids, and it's been fun. It's something I enjoy doing.
Yeah, you and me both, man. So let me ask you this question: how many kids are there that are trying to get into these schools? I mean, do you see a lot of kids? Is it just a few?
I'm sorry, Cortez. I missed what you said there. I'm sorry.
So do you see a lot of kids trying to get into college at Maryland, or like how many kids do you see that are actually trying to compete for these spots?
Yeah. So pretty much it doesn't matter what school it is. The rule is that you cannot sign more than 28 players in a given recruiting class. That is the absolute max amount that you can sign. So some years it's going to be teams will take, depending on needs, depending on how the current roster is constructed, you might see teams take as few as 19 or 20. And then some might go all the way up and use the full 28. And then a couple of those might be like gray shirts, which mean that you don't count towards the current recruiting class. Like your scholarship doesn't become valid until like a year later, that kind of thing. But usually it's going to be anywhere from 19 to about 26 in any class for any school. So that's pretty standard across the board.
Okay, so you can only fit 28 guys that you can sign. Each school can only sign 28 guys. About how many people do you see that are fighting?
Pretty much no one ever goes as high as 28, because if you keep going as high, because you're going to run out, because you can only have 80-some guys on a roster on scholarship. Mm-hmm. So rarely will teams use all 28 spots, because you just can't do it, because you can't go over the maximum roster limit for scholarships.
Right. And I think that's something that a lot of people, they really don't look into it, and they think that, okay, the whole senior class graduates, now let's refill with all freshmen. Some people just think that there's unlimited amount of spaces, and that's just not the case. So sometimes you just got to look at see how many people they actually need. Do you see hundreds of guys at these camps and combines and clinics? Like what do you say would be the percentage of how many make it?
Percentage of what was the last part?
How many players actually make it to these teams? Like a team like Maryland.
Yeah. So you're looking at I think it's something like the top 3% of high school players get Division I scholarships. So you've got to really, you sort of really have to separate yourself. And some of that you can see from combines, that the kids that that obviously are quick and they can run, but college coaches also like to see your film too, and that's pretty important. So combines will they'll get you noticed. They definitely will, because they can tell. You can show athleticism there, and speed obviously, and different skills. But the college coaches that are really evaluating want to see what you do on game day.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty important too. And they're looking for the guys that usually you can tell a Division I guy pretty much off the bat, a high Division I guy.
How would you be able to tell?
Yeah, pretty much you're dominating the game. Even you can tell for something like an offensive tackle, if that guy's just blowing guys off the ball, you can see that right away, and that's sort of what separates it. Or sometimes cornerbacks, they don't get thrown at. I got that, but if you're sitting there and you're basically locking down, I mean, the best recruit I saw last year, there was never a pass thrown in the cornerback's direction, and but he was basically he was guarding a receiver or face guarding a receiver, pressing him, who was 4 inches taller than he was. He was the team's best player, this receiver, and he didn't get one ball thrown to him because he basically was taken out of the game. So even if you're not, you can pretty much tell these guys they own the field. They make you notice them, and those are the players that are going to be getting these high Division I offers.
Awesome. A little bit about your website. You can go on there and you can look up players that are all over the country, and they have like 5 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars. How do you get on that website, and how do you get a star?
Yeah, 242. I mean, the 247 now. Like I said, we're merging with 247, so it's pretty. Usually what happens is we'll take notice of kids, either through high school coaches or through our own scouting, and then we go ahead and make the profiles. And anybody that works for our network, and our network is pretty big. Most people have heard of 247, 247 Sports. We can go and make those profiles.
Okay. Awesome. So we'll try to get these guys on there then.
Sure. Yeah.
So tell me about the stars, though. I mean, you guys evaluate their things also?
Yeah. So basically, that works by our national evaluators. They are the ones that ultimately assign the star ratings. We, as individual publishers for certain sites, we give input. And they ask us, we're in touch with all these guys, and we'll be like, hey, I've seen this kid play this many times. I recommend it here. And then, but our national evaluators, there's like 10 to 15 of them, and they're the ones that sit down and crank through and assign the stars. Awesome.
And how important do you think a star is?
Not important at all. I think it's actually one of the most overrated things. You don't need to worry about that kind of stuff at all. And then it's basically college coaches do not go around looking at recruiting websites and saying, okay, this kid's only a 3-star. This kid, is only a 2-star or something like that. We're not going to recruit him. They're going to do their own homework. They don't really care. And a lot of times what will happen is a kid that's maybe underrated or flying under the radar, and then all of a sudden pops up and he's got like, I don't know, a UNC offer or a Power 5 offer, and then all of a sudden we're like, oh, well, maybe we reevaluated this one, and then we'll go back and look at him, and you'll see the star rating jump up just because he got a certain offer. So it's like, so it's not something that I that you want to pay too close of attention to. So.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. Let me ask you another question since I have you. Have you seen anybody like that was really highly recruited? Like, say for instance with Maryland, have you seen anyone that was very highly recruited and they kind of didn't really pan out, and then somebody that wasn't recruited heavily at all and they kind of turned out?
I mean, that happens all the time. I mean, that happens year in and year out. I mean, it's hard. It's really hard to project a lot of times. Especially coming from the high school level to college. I mean, that's a big jump because just the work ethic needed. I mean, a kid could be talented as hell, and then you get into this, and if you're not willing to put in the work, then you're not going to play. And it doesn't matter how highly recruited you are. When you get in there and and there's a walk-on that's beating your butt in practice every day, then that kid's going to play. That's how it goes. So I mean, and you see it happen. You see it all the time. And then obviously injuries play into it. Injuries can derail guys' careers. That's why education is important. You got to get that degree because if you get hurt, that's it's part of the game. It's football. You need to have something to fall back on. But yeah, you see it year in and year out. I mean, I can give you a ton of examples. Top recruits in the country. Maryland I'll tell you one. They're getting a defensive end transfer from Auburn. A kid that they recruited 4 years ago, and he has one last gasp effort to sort of get it right. He was the number 2 recruit in the country. His name is Byron Cowart. He was out of Florida, and 6'5", 260 defensive end, 5-star recruit, number 2 recruit in the country, committed to Auburn 4 years ago, and has basically never played. He just didn't work hard enough, didn't show enough. He didn't, and he's transferring now in his last year. Maryland needed a defensive end because they graduated a bunch of guys. They took a flyer on him, so we're going to see what he does. But that's one big example. 5-star kid just never panned out.
Mm-hmm. That's one thing I really want the guys to know is just because you get the offer and you get the scholarship, that doesn't mean that you made it. You still got a lot of work to do
Yeah,
to get to
and
that next
yeah, and
level.
a big thing is that I always tell kids, and then you have to realize is that a lot of times, just like kids will decommit, or you can go around look at other schools, even if you do commit. Schools will give scholarships out that aren't always committable, and the reason they do this, and what I mean by that is they can give you an offer, but they might not. But if you try to commit to them, they might not take your commitment right away. They might, and the reason they do this is because they have so many different targets on their board, right? So suppose that they're going to take 3 cornerbacks in a class, just 3, and they decide that after they watch film and things like that, they're like, okay, these are our top 3 targets. But rarely does a school get every single one of those targets. So you don't just give out 3 scholarships to the 3 guys you want most. They'll give out like 10 or 15, but they won't take the 6th or 7th cornerback on their board unless they miss on 4 or 5 of the guys rated ahead of them. So that's how it works sometimes too. So you sit there and you think, oh, I got a nice offer from, I don't know, from Texas A&M or something like that. You guys are down there, so okay. But then you don't have that. Your other offers are from lower Division I schools, or you don't have anything else. And then you're like, okay, well, I'm going to go to Texas A&M then. But Texas A&M doesn't have you as high on their board, and they're like, we want to. Why don't you wait a little bit? Why don't you look around a little bit? And then all of a sudden you find out the offer's not on there, and you're sort of out of luck. So even if you get that offer, you have to keep working, have to keep showing out, and make yourself wanted by these schools. And that's pretty important to know.
What would you say would be some good tips to give these guys? Because all of these guys want to get noticed. All of them want to get that scholarship, and everybody wants to get a ton of scholarship offers and get a lot of looks. What would you say to these guys? I think we have a freshman down there. Nicholas is a freshman. Zach's a sophomore, and we have 2 juniors over there. What would you say to them to increase their opportunity to get some exposure?
Yeah. You want to try to go to as many of that. You don't. I mean, the combines that you see that are offered by, this Under Armour Rivals. Yeah, you can do those, and those will get you written up and noticed. But the ones I always recommend are the big team camps that they do in the summertime in July, where they have every school, every major school hosts these. They host these prospect camps, and you want to try to go to those because that puts you right in front of college coaches. They cost a little bit of money, but it's worth it, because what happens is that all these assistants, they're going to say that they're going to find out the kids that jump out, and then these guys talk to each other too. They're like, okay, so even if that school that you camp at, even if they don't offer you, your performance sort of gets out there to other coaches. I mean, these guys talk to each other, all these assistant coaches and things like that. And if you get noticed by a school at one of these big camps, I mean, your name's going to get out there to other schools. And I would recommend going to some of the nearby ones. So if you're down in Texas, a UT or TAMU, or any of those schools, they're all going to host them. And that's one of the major ways to get seen, is to do those in the summertime.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then just sending your film out there, getting it out on Huddle. I mean, you have to get it out there on Huddle, and and active on. You got to be active on Twitter too, because coaches, college coaches, that is their main way of communicating, is through. They'll text you and things like that, and you can text them, but their main way is direct message on Twitter. And make sure have your highlight film in your profile, and things like that. Make it easily accessible so they can sort of see it. And if they like it, they'll be like, they might DM you or something like that. Make it so you can be DM'd, and have a have a Twitter handle that's not something crazy where they don't have to search for you. I actually know colleges at Maryland, and they're like, the kids, you got some crazy Twitter handle and they can't find you. And they're like sitting there and they're asking me, like, do you follow this kid on Twitter? We can't find him. It's some crazy name. So you got to make yourself very marketable, and you got to get yourself out there, make it easy for them to see everything that you do. Put your Huddle film out there, go to the camps, and, be active on social media, and in a positive way.
Right. Again, that's key, positive way. Because I mean, sometimes these kids are sharing stuff that
Yeah, you can't be
coaches don't want to
sharing.
see.
Yeah, you can't be sharing pictures that are yeah, you have to keep it pretty professional. So you can have fun, but you can't do something that you got to think. It's almost like a job application in a way. I know college coaches that will stop recruiting kids because of things that they've seen them tweet or post on social media. So.
That's awesome. You guys are taking that in, I hope. Does anybody have any questions for Dave? Because I can keep going with him because I love this. But anybody want to ask any questions? It's your chance to ask an actual scout.com writer and recruiter.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Like, what do you do with the team camps? Like, they consist?
They'll put you through various drills depending on your position. So usually they divide it into two sections. So they'll have like a big man camp, and which is with all the offensive, defensive linemen, and they'll work with the various position coaches, and then they have usually a skill portion, and then I think then sometimes a third one just for quarterbacks, and then sometimes they'll even have a fourth one just for special teams like kickers and stuff like that. But usually they'll divide it up like that. So cornerbacks, receivers, running backs, linebackers will be together. Big men will be together. Quarterbacks usually have their own separate thing just because they have to throw. And then sometimes they'll have a section for kickers and punters and things like that. And basically what happens is they'll run you through various drills, footwork stuff you're going to be doing with your high school team, footwork drills. They'll do one-on-ones. You'll see the receiver cornerbacks go at each other, linebackers, running backs, that kind of thing. And then it's usually a few hours, 2 or 3 hours of drills and different competition that they'll provide for you. And then they'll give you instruction too, like the coaches, they'll be sitting there like drilling you, giving you tips and things like that. So
at these camps, what's the most important thing? Is it the one-on-ones or is it the drills?
Yeah, I mean, everything is. They want to. I mean, they want to see you do well in the one. Obviously, the one-on-ones definitely stand out. I mean, if you're a receiver going up against a cornerback, the coaches do like to sort of see that kind of stuff. I've seen guys get offers off of that if they're really athletic corner that shuts down all the receivers in the one-on-one portions, or a lineman that just they do those the one-on-one drills with the defensive end and the offensive tackle. And I've seen guys get offers off of that too, just by pretty much blowing everybody else off the ball during those drills. So.
Nice. All right. And Aaron's actually from Virginia. So
okay.
I think Northern Virginia, right? You're not far from DC, right?
Fredericksburg.
Yeah. So he should be possibly at the Maryland camp when it comes up, possibly.
Yep.
So
They'll have that.
See him in person.
Yep. Cool. Nice.
All right. Anybody else got any questions? It's a good chance, man. Don't hold anything back. It's a good chance for you to get some information. Come on, Zach. I see you. You know you got a question. All right. See, that's the thing, man. These kids shy, man.
All good. No problem.
All right. So, for instance, we were talking earlier about DBs, and if you're a good DB and they don't throw the ball to you, for instance, I have a kid here, Cam. He's from Maryland also, from the Eastern Shore, and he plays defensive back. But the teams they play against, they don't throw. They run a lot. So he doesn't get any opportunities. What can he do separate himself and get noticed?
Right. Yeah, that does happen. I mean, it's just trying. Yeah, because it's always tough to put film out there like that. When they don't throw. Yeah, that's always difficult. It's hard because kids that have talent that you see. That's why you see a lot of kids end up transferring to like private schools and things like that, because the competition's a little better. Coaches do take that. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Coaches do take that into consideration. They'll take a kid that plays against better competition. Just because they're film, I mean, you just do sort of the best you can. I mean, you have to be a lockdown corner. And then a lot of times what'll happen is if you can run and show athleticism, like in these camps and things like that, that will help you a little bit. Obviously it's going to be tough because your film's not going to be as attractive as against if you're a corner playing against teams that actually throw. But Yeah, that's actually a tough one. That's honestly why a lot of people. And Cortez, you saw it when you were up here on the Eastern Shore. The kids they'd go across the bridge and transfer to DeMatha or some of the private schools just because the competition's a little better and they know they have it's easier to get your name out there when you play at some of those schools. But that's not an option for everybody. Right. Not everybody wants to do that. So, but it's just sort of the reality of the situation. Yeah.
I don't know why some coaches are afraid to throw, man. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
And they can pick who they play too. So I don't get it. So as a freshman, so I have Nico Campbell down there on the bottom. He is from San Antonio, Texas, but he's a freshman. So, I mean, he's doing a great thing by getting started so really early and on time. What would you say to him? Because he's going to go to camp and he's going to be facing juniors and seniors and stuff like that. What would you say to him? What advice would you give him?
Right. Just, don't back down. Don't be, take charge attitude. Coaches notice that kind of stuff. You get on their radar early and just even if you give up some plays, which is going to happen. I mean, because you're playing against guys that are more developed usually. But if you compete and have a never back down attitude, that's going to catch their eye, and they're probably going to say, hey, we're going to stay in touch or something, and we'd like you to come back next year, and then that offer might present itself. But yeah, you want to make sure do everything you can to show that you're not afraid and that you can compete, and that's gonna catch their eye.
When you're at camp. And they pull you back from the rest of the group. Is that when they present the offer, or?
Yeah, sometimes it is. Sometimes it's different. Schools will do different ways. Sometimes they'll send one of their graduate assistants or something like that, and they're like, hey, this kid, we're going to take you over to the head coach's office, and then they'll meet with them individually and say, hey, got an offer from Maryland. We'd love to recruit you. Mm-hmm. And they'll do it sort of on an individual basis. Sometimes I've seen it done where they'll pull them right off to the side during the camp and they'll offer them right there. I've seen that too.
Me too. So so let's say you don't perform that great, your best at that camp. And then let's say you're a junior, that's your last chance pretty much.
Yeah. Well, no, it's not your last chance because you still got your senior season and your film that you can get out and things like that. And obviously, and you get the spring evaluation period even before the camps start when coaches start coming through your high school. Mm-hmm. That's big too. Like you can catch a lot of eyes just by just during that spring period when coaches start to visit around. Mm-hmm. So so even if you don't do great at the camps, I mean, it's not the end of the world if you have solid film and you perform well in the fall.
So from what I got from this conversation, mostly is that film is probably the most important part to your
that huddle film. I mean, I've seen even more so now. I've seen a lot of schools. They used to, because they want to get a jump on getting the offers out there. Mm-hmm. I've seen more offers than before when I first started come off of what they'll do is they'll just sit down as a staff on Monday afternoon, Monday morning, Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning, and they'll sit down and they'll just go through all their recruiting areas. Remember, different colleges will recruit different areas too. You have to sort of realize that, like, if you're from Texas and you said you want like an offer from I don't know, a school up north. Well, a school up north might not recruit your area in Texas, so you're probably not going to get too much interest from them. But what will happen is that these college coaches, they'll sit down and they'll go over their recruiting areas and they'll look at film from all the high schools that they recruit in that area, and they'll evaluate it. And they'll say, okay, this is a kid that's on our radar. This is a kid that's on our radar. And they'll determine that before even seeing the kid in person. Mm-hmm. During the spring evaluation period or during visits or anything like that. So they have a general idea of who they're looking at before they even watch it in person.
Right. So that's key, guys, man. Yes. Just keep getting we're doing that now. We're getting our name out there and getting on the radar, but that's very key. And also you can tell that you have to be patient with this process, right? Because, it's a lot of people to look through to determine if they want you or not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Determining who wants you actually is more key than anything. And you might not know that even if you have, like I said, even if you have the offer, I mean, you're not, like I said, some of those offers are not, they might have offered 15 guys and you might be 14th on the board out of 15 guys, which means that they'll have to miss on however many before they really want you. So sometimes you have to sort of determine that, and you have to sort of know, like, and you can get that just by being smart and savvy when you're talking to these coaches. Because remember, ultimately you're trying to sell them, but remember, they're salesmen too. So they're trying to sell that. They're trying to make sure that you're interested in them. So they're going to keep talking to you, and they're going to tell you about the school, stay in touch. They're going to try to be your friend and buddy, and that's great. But you have to determine what school. You have to look at depth charts. You have to look at who they're recruiting, and you have to get an idea from them. Like if they tell you, hey, you're our number one guy, you're a priority, then, they probably want you. They're probably a top guy. But, if they don't text you every day, or, maybe their communication is on and off, maybe once every couple of weeks or something like that, it's probably an indication that they have other guys in mind. So you got to kind of know that and sort of realize that. Just be savvy about it. So.
How important is it to be proactive, and what can our guys do?
Oh yeah, like I said, Twitter is very important. That's how these coaches that text and Twitter, they DM all these guys. They have to do it. Every coach, every college coach at a Power 5 program and a Division I program, to tell you the truth, in America, every single assistant coach is on Twitter. I guarantee it, and that they have to be that, because that's how they communicate with you. I mean, that's literally how they do it. And then it advances to, text messages and things like that once you exchange numbers. But they find you. It used to be back before Twitter, and back in the day, they'd have to go through the high school coaches, and the high school coaches would provide the phone numbers and things like that. But now high school coaches have almost been taken out of the process somewhat. They'll still talk to the high school coaches, and they'll ask his opinion, like, hey, what kind of a guy is this? Is he a high character kid? Do you like him? And the coach will give his recommendation. But they can pretty much bypass that, and they'll go right through Twitter and get right to the kid. So you have to, so that's important.
Yeah. So guys, make sure you're on there using it every day, and you guys can reach out to the coaches, right? What do they say when they reach out to a coach?
Yeah. Just, like I said, you be very polite. You just say, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm a sophomore at such and such high school. I'm interested in your program. Would you mind taking a look at my film? This is my film. And then, and then that's all you can do. And then sometimes they'll click. Remember, lots of recruits are doing this. So they may or may not get back to you. That's the reality of the situation. It just depends. They might take a look at the film, watch the first 15 seconds, and they'll be like, eh.
Yeah.
Or, and then they might respond to you, and they might not. So, but that's all you can do is keep trying. Yeah. And like I said, you've got to know what it's not. You have to know what they're looking for too. Like I know for a fact, Maryland doesn't recruit defensive backs under 6 feet tall. That's just sort of their policy. They're in the Big Ten, and they want longer defensive backs. So if you're under 6 feet, unless you're an exceptional 5'10", you've got ball skills, you got a 4.4 40 speed, you're an exceptional ball skills in a 40 or in a vertical where you play like you're bigger than 5'10", then yeah, okay. But as a rule, pretty much they're not going to take you if you're under 6 feet. So they might say that you're listed at 5'9", 5'10", 165, and they'll be like, sorry. So you got to realize that too. What they're looking for. I mean, if you're an offensive tackle but you're 6'5", well, Alabama or Oklahoma, they don't recruit tackles that are under 6'6". So that's just the reality of the situation. So
yeah, I'm not gonna take all of your time. I got a couple more questions for you, and that's it. Let's say I have this happen all the time. Let's say that kids want to be D1, right? Everybody wants to go D1. I want to go D1. What do you say to these kids? Like, I just want to go D1. They don't pay attention to D2. They don't pay attention to the FCS programs. Like, I want to be FBS school. What do you say to those guys?
Yeah, I said that as long as everybody wants to get to the league and things like that, but I think what it's shown, no matter what level you play at, even if it's at a D2 school, you see it every year. There's like 30 D2 recruits that get drafted into the NFL, and they get a shot. Now, some of them, if you work and show out, you're going to get seen no matter where you are. So to sit there and dismiss D2 or 1AA schools, it's a little short-sighted. And what'll happen is a lot of times guys that they're so dead set on going high D1 or Power 5 that they'll be like the last. It's sort of like an ego thing, and they'll be one of the last recruits in a class. And you see it every year where I'll sit there and evaluate a guy, and I'll sit there and I'll scratch my head. Maryland, maybe they missed on a few targets or something like that, and they take a flyer on a cornerback, and I'm sitting there watching his film and things like that. I'm like, they really took this guy. Like I'm not saying to the kid, obviously, or I'm not telling the staff that they made a bad evaluation, but I'm like, huh? And then 3 years later, the kid basically is just a special teams player. I mean, he barely gets off the bench, doesn't, he's just kind of like a roster filler, where if he would have sort of seen that he might have fit better at the 1AA level where he can play all the time, maybe started or something like that, he might have had a better career and, got his name more out there and, maybe had a shot at the next level. Whereas, he was kind of an afterthought at Maryland. That's just one guy I had in mind. I won't say his name, but that sort of happens. So you got to be sort of honest about your own talent, what you're able to do, and realize that, 1AA or Division II is not necessarily a bad thing. And you're getting your degree either way. So, and that's important.
Awesome. That's all I have for you right now, Dave. Zach, any questions? Cam, Nicholas, any questions? Like I said, it's a great opportunity. All right, that's all I have for you. If you want to leave us with something else, what's the website?
Yeah. Well, I write for Maryland, obviously, so it's terrapintimes.com, and then 247 Sports is our employer.
Awesome. I appreciate the time, Dave, as always, and hopefully we'll have you on here again at another time.
Anytime, Cortez. Thank you. You have a good one now.
All right, thank you. All right, guys, you can sign off, and then we'll see you next week. Well, what's up, Aaron? You about something?
Oh, no. I was saying
okay. All right. We'll see you guys next week.
All right, Cortez. I'll talk to you, man.
All right, see you.